Topic is news article is Lustre or Bluster. So hey everyone, welcome back to Little Letter Curious Mind. So today we'll talk about new news article, that is bulletin. So today we'll talk about Lustre or Bluster. So already I read about it with the physical and I note something important. And now first we need to know some phrase, some meaning, like what is the meaning of Lustre, Bluster. So whatever we need, according that, as per that, I just created for you. So let's talk about some vocabulary. Then we will talk like how could we talk about any kinds of news article, and while reading, if there is any problem with any vocabulary, so how could we solve it. So first हम समझेंगे कि what is the meaning of lustre bluster. So let's talk about it. And even you can see like here I literally mention like aspirant, you must watch this video. Okay. Now we'll talk about some vocabulary. So let's talk about it. So the first is, what is the meaning of lustre bluster? Lustre, that English meaning is shine, brilliance, respected, glory. And you can read in Hindi चमक, प्रतिष्ठा, गौरव. क्योंकि अगर मैं दोनों मीनिंग पढ़ूंगी तो ज़्यादा टाइम लगेगा. Okay, I hope you got it. So how could you make sentence with lustre? So India's scientific achievements added lustre to the nation image. भारत की वैज्ञानिक उपलब्धियों ने देश की प्रतिष्ठा बढ़ाई. The second word is bluster. Bluster, that meaning is loud, aggressive talk without real action. Okay, like बोलते हैं ना खोखली डिंगे मारना, गरजना लेकिन ऐसा ना करना, उसे हम बोल सकते हैं bluster. So how could you make sentence? So the leader's speech sounded more like bluster than real policy. नेता का भाषण असली नीति से ज़्यादा खोखली बातों जैसा लगा. Okay, so our title meaning is lustre or bluster. So the article is asking one question, like, is India's economy truly strong and shining, that is lustre, or is it only loud claims without solid strength, that is bluster? So let's first talk about some important phrase and idiom from this article. So the first is take a toll on. Take a toll on. What is the meaning? To badly affect something. बुरा प्रभाव डालना. Take it all on. How could you make sentence? Rising fuel prices took a toll on poor families. बढ़ती ईंधन कीमतों ने गरीब परिवारों पर बुरा असर डाला. And the second is bound to. That means certain to happen. मतलब निश्चित रूप से होना. Bound to. So how could you make sentence with the bound to? Economic slowdown was bound to affect jobs. आर्थिक मंदी का नौकरियों पर असर पड़ना तय था. And the next is far from. Far from, that means not at all, very different from, बिल्कुल नहीं या फिर बहुत दूर. Like no, it's just a far from, like that. And how could you make sentence with the formal way? So the rural economic is far from stable. ग्रामीण अर्थव्यवस्था बिल्कुल स्थिर नहीं है. And the next is drag down. That means pull something to a lower level. नीचे गिराना. Drag down, pull something a lower level. Okay. How could you make sentence? So weak exports dragged down economic growth. कमजोर निर्यात ने आर्थिक विकास को नीचे गिरा दिया. And the next is rear its head. Rear its head. That means to appear again in a dangerous way. Okay. To appear again in a dangerous way. फिर से उभरना. And how could you make sentence? Inflation is rearing its head again. महंगाई फिर से उभर रही है. And the next is cooling off. Cooling off, that means becoming less interested or less active. Okay, like cooling off to talk to anyone like this. Okay, that means ठंडा पड़ना. So how could you make sentence? Foreigner investors are cooling off from risky markets. विदेशी निवेशक जोखिम वाले बाजारों से दूरी बना रहे हैं. Are cooling off from risky markets. And the next phrase is work to one's advantage. Work to one's advantage. That means become beneficial. फायदे में होना. So low oil prices worked to India's advantage. कम तेल कीमतें भारत के लिए फायदेमंद रही है. Again, now I just made some vocabulary for you. So the first is metal. Metal means what? Ability to face difficulties bravely. That is metal. यानी कि साहस और क्षमता की बात करता है हमारा metal. So how could you make sentence with the metal? So the crisis tested the government's metal. So how could हिंदी मीनिंग इज संकट ने सरकार की क्षमता और साहस की परीक्षा ली. The crisis tested the government's mettle. Okay, and the next is headwinds. Headwinds, difficult conditions, slowing progress. विपरीत परिस्थितियां, global tensions created economic headwinds. वैश्विक तनाव से आर्थिक कठिन परिस्थितियां पैदा की. मतलब कि एक तरह का ये डिफिकल्ट कंडीशन है, headwinds मतलब. ओके, and the next is accumulate. Accumulate, that means to gather gradually over time. इकट्ठा होना, मतलब टाइम के अकॉर्डिंग हम जो गैदरिंग करते हैं उसे बोलते हैं accumulate. Okay, so how could you make sentence with this? Economic problems accumulate over several months. आर्थिक समस्याएं कई महीनों में धीरे धीरे बढ़ी. The next is subdued. Subdued, how could you what is the meaning of subdued? Means quiet, weak, less energetic. धीमा भी हो और कमजोर भी हो, उसे हम बोल सकते हैं he just subdued. So how could you make sentence? Consumer demand remanded subdued this year. इस वर्ष उपभोक्ता मांग कमजोर रही है. मतलब ये चीज़ों की भी बात कर रहा है कि जब चीज़ें हमारी कमजोर हो जाती है तो subdued this year, कमजोर मांग रही है. Robust, that means strong and healthy. Robust, मजबूत. How could you make sentence with the robust, strong, healthy? So the natural gas sector showed robust growth. प्राकृतिक गैस क्षेत्र में मजबूत वृद्धि हुई. The next is implications. Please focus and pay attention here because it is not implication, that is and this is implications, that means possible effects or results. परिमाण या फिर प्रभाव. क्या परिमाण रहा, मतलब क्या प्रभाव रहा, हम कह सकते हैं इसको implications. So how could you make sentence with this? The policy has serious economic implications. The policy has serious economic implications. इस नीति के गंभीर आर्थिक प्रभाव है या फिर परिणाम है. Okay, stagnation, that means lack of growth या lack of progress. ठहराव, the country suffered economic stagnation. This आर्थिक ठहराव से गुजरा. The next is constraint, that means limitation. Restriction, constraint, limitation, restriction, that means बाधा और सीमा. How could you make sentence with this? So fuel shortage became a major constraint. ईंधन की कमी एक बड़ी बाधा बन गई. Okay, यहाँ पे देखिए ये है constraint, that means a limitation, and here is contraction, that means reducing or shrinking. वो लिमिटेशन की बात कर रहा है और ये किसी चीज को कमी की बात कर रही है, सिकुड़ना है ना, contraction. So how could you make sentence with this? So the industrial sector saw a contraction in output. औद्योगिक क्षेत्र में उत्पादन में गिरावट देखी गई. The industrial sector saw a contraction in output. The next is hostage. What is the meaning of hostage? Controlled by something dangerous, that means bandhak. The economy became hostage to global conflicts. The economy became hostage to global conflicts. अर्थव्यवस्था वैश्विक संघर्षों की बंधक बन गई है. Now let's talk about like how could we read any news article with segregation. मतलब कि अलग अलग पार्ट में बांट के हम कैसे पढ़ सकते हैं, कैसे चीज़ें समझ सकते हैं और कैसे क्वेश्चन निकाल सकते हैं. ठीक है. So first we know like what is the meaning of Lustre. Bluster means India's economic under pressure. Is India economic truly strong or is it facing hidden dangers because of global conflicts? So now we will talk about Lustre or Bluster. So this article talks about India's economic and asks a serious question for us like, is India economic growth genuinely strong and shining like a luster, or is it only appearing strong while hidden problems are growing like a bluster? So everyone, so the article mainly connects World Asia conflict, oil prices and inflation, slow industries and global trade tensions. Now let's talk about and let's go in the deep with segregation. So first we need to talk about economic segregation, that means economic impact. So what is happening economically? So India's economy is facing headwinds, that means difficult condition because fuel prices are rising, imports are becoming expensive, industrial growth is slowing and investors are becoming cautious. Now let's talk about some important economic data sector situation. So fertilizer sector contracted by 24.6%, core industries contracted by 0.4%, natural gas sector grew by 6.4%, rural demand weak, construction sector slowed down visible. Okay, one thing we will talk about. Why is it dangerous? Because India depends heavily on import crude oil, natural gas and fertilizers. So if global war increases, oil becomes expensive. Inflation rises, industries suffer, and common people face pressure. Now let's talk about some geopolitical segregation. So what is geopolitics here? So the article links India's economic with Iran conflict, West Asia instability, US-China tensions, global trade changes. Now we will talk about something about India. How does war affect India? So even if war is far away geographical, its economic shock waves reach India. For example, war in Iran, oil supply disrupted, fuel expensive, transport expensive, and even food prices increase in India. So what is the India's challenge? So India must maintain relation with Gulf countries, balance ties with the US and Russia, protect trade routes, keep energy supply stable. This is called a strategic balancing. Now let's move on the geographical segregation. Means why is geography important here? So here is West Asia, Gulf region. This region contains major oil reserves, shipping routes, trade ports, and India receive crude oil, LPG, fertilizers through these sea routes. Now I think we should move on to some geographical rates. So if these, one second, actually we will talk about some key geographical areas, that is region importance like Gulf region, oil and gas hub, Strait of Hormuz, major world road, and Iran energy and regional stability, Dubai trade and logistics, Red Sea shipping route. Now I will talk about some geographical risks like if this region became unstable, global supply chains break, shipping cost increases, inflation spreads worldwide. And here we can conclude that is social impact, society. Like how does this affect ordinary people? Common effects like expensive food, high fuel prices, job slowdown, rural distress, and inflation in daily life. And most affected group is middle class, farmers, workers, and small business and transport sector. I think we should talk about some emotional, social effect. Why it's neat? Because all people are connected with the emotion. So people begins to feel financial insecurity, fear about future, reduced spending, stress in household. And now we should and we must talk about impact on India. So what is the India's strength? Large market, young population, strong digital economy, manufacturing growth, global investment opportunities. And what would be the India's weakness? So import dependence, oil dependency, inflation pressure, uneven rural growth, external vulnerability. Now we should move on impact on the world. Now let's talk about the world. So global consequence, war affects oil prices, shipping, trade, stock markets, and currency stability. So why whole world suffers? Because economics are interconnected. One conflict can disturb Europe, Asia, Africa, America. This is called global economic interdependence. This is called global economic interdependence. Now let's talk about some like way forward solution. So first would be reduce oil dependence. India should increase renewable energy that is come from the nature and promote EV vehicle, develop green hydrogen, and the second would be strengthen domestic manufacturing. India should produce fertilizers, electronics, energy equipment and inside the country. And the third would be diversity trade partners. India should not depend on one region only. Need a stronger ties with Africa, South Asia, Europe, even with the Latin America. Okay. Alright, now let's talk about build economic resilience. So what is the need and for the build economic resilience? So the strong reserves, stable policies, better rural support, strong infrastructure. And what would be the diplomatic balance? So India must maintain neutrality, peace diplomacy, and a strategic partnership without becoming dependent on one power, B, L, or C. So hey everyone, now we should wrap it and with some conclusion. So basically, this article highlights how modern economics are deeply interconnected. Even a regional conflict in West Asia can create inflation, industrial slowdown, and uncertainty in countries like India. The editorial question whether India's economic strength is genuinely stable or temporarily surviving external support. It also teaches us that economic resilience requires diversification, diplomatic balance, and a strong domestic protection. So I hope you got it, like what is the meaning of Lustre Bluster. That means like it's not only an article about economics, it is a warning about how fragile global stability can become during geopolitical conflicts. India has opportunity to rise as a global power, but true growth requires, that is, resilience, balance, self-reliance, and smart diplomacy. So I would say in the last, like a shining economic is built not only on growth numbers, but also on stability, sustainability, and public confidence. I hope you got it well, and I hope the more like I feel happy, you will definitely get some happiness. I don't know, but please share your feedback. And if there is any issue, अगर मैं अच्छे से नहीं कर पा रही हूँ तो please suggest करिए how could I elaborate this topic. And till then, stay tuned. Thank you for listening and keep learning, keep